G'day, this is Johnny. I'm doing a video for you today about the Aeromax 4000. That's where you hang the painter. Oh, it's got the rubber thing so it doesn't get wet. It's pretty cool. It's loud. Yeah, you can feel the hot air start after a little while. It's like a dryer. It's amazing. It's a real machine. The reason I'm doing the video is because I looked online. I wanted to buy this particular unit. It's a HVLP paint system, which means it is high volume and low pressure. So the paint itself is not under much pressure. It just kind of gets sucked out of the can. What this really is like a giant vacuum cleaner in reverse. It has a turbine on the inside, and a turbine kind of is like a fan that's inverted in on itself, and when it spins it makes kind of like a cyclone, and then so it blasts the air through this hose and then into the paint sprayer. Alright, so I've already filled this can up with paint. It's got white paint. I've already watered it down a little. Maybe added 10 or 20% paint, water to the paint. So it comes out thinner, and that's okay too, because the Aeromax 4000 is a machine that heats the air. It doesn't just blow cold air through the system. It warms the air. I won't say it's hot air like a hair dryer, but it warms the air so that when the paint gets sprayed onto the wall, it dries almost immediately. So it dries within a couple of minutes. The thing is, it has a solid metal construction. I'm quite happy with that. It's just basically a box. Very solid. And then you get this 3-meter hose that blows out the warm air, and that just clips in the front. So the machine is basically a reverse vacuum cleaner, and I'm going to test it out for you because I need to paint this room. We've spent the last day preparing it, doing the edges, sort of just getting it all ready, so by the time that we're ready to spray, it should be easy enough. I've never used one of these particular types of sprayers before. The hole in the back of the spray gun is quite large, or much larger than what is normal, what you would expect. But the system is all steel, and you expect probably to get a good result from something like this. So, as I said, I've already filled, it feels like about 1 kilo of paint in here. It's like Walter White. Also invested in one of these spray masks. It's especially for painting. Once I put on the gas mask and once I turn on the machine, you won't hear anything. There's no point me talking anymore because it'll be quite loud. I want you to hear the volume of the machine though, because I think you'll get a pretty good idea of how loud this thing is. It also changes tone when you put each hose on. So listen to this and you be the judge if this machine is too loud for your workplace. looks like the paint's too thick. It doesn't really want to get sucked out of here at this point. So I have to find a way to mix that better. Something with like a metal stick that I can put on a drill, so I can mix the paint properly. I think it's just too thick, and that's no way to do it. Yep, I have to water down the paint a little. I'm just testing it. That's why I'm not bothering to put on the mask right now. This is the Aeromax 4000 take 2. I'm sure it's because the paint was too thick. We'll find out in a second. I'll let the machine be on for a moment just to warm up. So we tried to thin out the paint again. We added at least about another litre or 2 litres of water to it. I don't know if we need to add more, but the paint that we did put on was quite thin. I opened the aperture up as much as possible, and then it actually fell off while I was trying to use it. And then so in the middle of painting, I had to try and squeeze this thing back on. It took a little while because there's a spring in there. And I'm going to try one more time to spray this. I don't really want to water the paint down much more. I mean, I guess I can, but I don't know how much waterier it needs to be before it works properly. You know, it should still be paint. But I'll try it. See, that sputtery thing usually is when the paint is too thick. So it could be a matter of the paint still being too thick, but I'm not very happy with it so far. I'm not getting any good results, but I'll just try it again as is, and then I guess we can water it down a little more, and then if it doesn't work after that, it's going to be a real pain in the ass. It seems to still be quite sputtery, and you can see kind of globs of paint kind of flying out. That could be that the paint in here still needs to be thinned, and if that is the case, I think from this point we'll just thin it from inside each container rather than trying to thin out the entire, 10 litres of paint, because we might ruin the whole amount. Whoa. It's not winning so far. But it could just be how thick the paint is. So we're going to try and thin out the paint inside this and try it again with thinner paint yet. I was starting this is take number 4. I was starting to get depressed, and I was about to say some bad things about the company Aeromax 4000 HVLP system. But it turns out that actually they have 3 different size nozzles here. The nozzle that I started off with was the smallest one, which was probably for varnish or stain or something like that. Some very light, viscous or very thin liquid. This time I put the fattest one on, and it doesn't have a needle point anymore. It has kind of like a larger circular edge. I'm not sure if you can see it okay. But anyway, when I depress it now, there's a bubble. When I depress it now, you can see a bigger hole, And because of the bigger hole, I'm sure it's going to let a lot more paint through. And this time I'm going to see so much paint come through that I hope we didn't thin out the original paint too much. But on a positive note, you can see the original paint is almost dry. There's a little strip there, some in the corner, still wet. So I don't really want to paint over the wet stuff right now. But yeah, you can see it's going to dry all right. Well, let's try this again. I'm going to fully gear up this time because I'm confident that with the third biggest, the biggest one, it's going to allow the most paint through. So we're not going to get these silly results. We're going to get serious results. It still doesn't seem to be working properly. I'm not sure if it's the... See, the paint looks quite thin, but it doesn't spray. It really comes out thick, like globs. I'm not sure if we have to thin it out more. I mean, of course we can try that. I think we just completed or emptied this container. You can sort of see how much we painted, but look how terrible it is. It didn't even really come out as paint. It came out as, it didn't come out as a spray. It came out as solid paint. Whew, that looks terrible. That is terrible. Yeah, I'll try to thin it out and see if we can, yeah, maybe try to get a spray out of it instead of this thick globular stuff going on. Alright, so I did have the biggest hole, and this time I've switched so that it's the medium one, not the pinhole one, not the big hole one, but the medium size one, and I'm really hoping to get some better results this time around. I'm going to also have to change the direction the nozzle goes, because at the moment it's vertical. It's quite simple. You just pull out this nozzle, turn it, fits in snugly somewhere. Just put the ring back on and Bob's your uncle. I'm hoping this time around the paint's going to spray properly because we're using the medium-sized hole. And let's find out if that works or not. That's how I feel about it. I mean, how much thinner can the paint get? That's about as thin as a coat of white paint anyone could put on anything. And that, Jesus. It looks like a baby threw up milk on it. So all I can do is really go over it like a few times so that it's really, really white. in the end. I have to wait for this to dry. You can feel the warm air in the hose, so it's definitely spraying warm air. I don't know, maybe I think we could try to water down the mix a little so it doesn't spatter so much. But I have a pretty strong feeling that this machine is going to go back. So thankfully we kept all of the receipts and everything. But I mean, we tried a few different things. We tried 3 different nozzles. We tried watering down the paint. There's not much more to it really. But of course I'm going to have to try to finish this room regardless. But I mean really you can see the detail here. That's when we use the really big nozzle. In the corner is where we started with a really small nozzle, and the funny thing is that gave the best spray. But the smallest nozzle, even though it gave the best spray, gave almost nothing out. So I might try the small nozzle again. But it doesn't really look like that was the problem. I don't know if the paint is the problem. But the machine doesn't really seem to be spraying spray. It seems to be spraying pieces. And I can't imagine it being much thinner. I mean, have a look at it. It really is like spraying milk on the wall. I mean, how much thinner could you do a coat? I hope you can see that, alright? Yeah, it's really weird. So, you know, because of necessity, this room has to get finished no matter what. The whole thing has to get painted. I would hate to have to crack out the roller and bucket. I would hate to have to do that, especially in the roof, because there's lots of little nooks and crannies, and that's the whole point of using air, is that you don't have to get in the nooks and crannies because the air pushes the paint in.